Hello, everybody, and welcome to another video, I guess, because this is going to be a one-off thing, just talking about the custom content that came out of Con of Heroes 2025. And I expect that this could go on for a little while. I'm going to try to keep this, I don't want to say like I'm just going to skip over content, but I'm going to try to keep this brief only because we have so much content to talk about. We've got 26 cards for Carnage. We've got another 6 custom cards, 3 more custom cards, 12 custom cards, another 3, and then another 12. Like, we just have a lot of content to talk about, and I know that if I were to go in depth on all this, it would just become almost meaningless. But I figure we'll go through and I'll show off the cards that were in here and give impressions that kind of stand out when I get to them, and also just go over like how this went. I did talk about this very briefly. Well, one in an article that I wrote for Card Gamer, but then also on the Critical Encounters podcast that came out the week of May 12th. I think it came out on the 13th. But either way, I was in there somewhere, and there was a good discussion about it just in general. But I feel like just trying to talk about all the custom content, you only got so much word count, you only got so much time in a podcast. Let's dedicate as much time as we can to just talking through some of this stuff. And first of all, I do appreciate that the organizers went as far as to provide this nice rules card that explains what bonded is, although that was something that I think we kind of already knew. I'm trying to think if bonded is an actual phrase. It both is, or I suppose linked. But like in this case, like we'll get into the bonded cards, but they just do a lot of flipping back and forth. Menace is just putting any kind of player cards attached to this character, getting the temporary thing that we saw in Cyclops setup, which is actually going to be really important because it's something that we overlooked when we played through the Carnage scenario. And then just a general breakdown of the everything, and then kind of getting into the FAQ for the Carnage actual set. And what I do appreciate is that they did break down the set into an A and a B, so that if you're playing in just like a single table scenario thing versus a multiplayer mode, the cards work differently. I don't even know how the single table experience works yet, because I have not done it. I don't know what the differences are, but I suppose we'll look at the cards kind of side by side and just sort of get a sense for how things diverge. Then the Great Web is, oh my gosh, that was something during the event where they had one table that was playing through, but you also had to go up and like basically give them information. We've got Web Warrior allies that we will get to in just a second, and interact with other tables. This, I think, is maybe one of the most important things. With all the chaos that was going on, the fact that this is basically, we thought this was a misprint when we saw it on the cards. But then once you realize that like this means for each character, for each player in the event, that means that all 40 tables were counting towards this kind of like double player count thing. And this is a really good idea. Having a rules card, an FAQ card, is a really good idea. I think the problem is that in the chaos, when you've got, especially it was me, 2 strangers, and a friend, you're sort of already in this awkward area, and you're trying to like make everything make sense, and you just sort of maybe don't even think to look at the FAQ card as much as you ought to. I think the other thing is that this was the side that we had face up on the table, so we were only thinking about this. We were never. I don't know that I've looked at this side of the card until today. But either way, let's look at the actual villains, because we've got the A and the B, and then the A and the B. So obviously you can see that there are different versions. I'm trying to even remember precisely how this works. Maybe this was the expert level, and they flip over. I suppose we can just check the main scheme real quick, just to kind of get on track here. So Carnage one. Okay, yeah. So you would do these 2 back here if you were doing expert mode. This is going to be very unorganized. I apologize right off the bat. But then the only set that was the like you would normally have was taking symbiotic strength from the Venom scenario. I will say that having to mix custom cards with real cards when it's just like one set, I almost wish that they had just done their own like custom art symbiotic strength, just so that all the cards had the same, well, here's a good example, all had this same custom background. So that you're basically just playing with a stack of cards that were all the same. Then during the setup, you would remove the symbiote attachment card from the game. Carnage symbiote, where's that one? That is, I'll be honest, I don't even know that I am fully aware of what card that is. And I guess, okay, so that's part of the Cultist, that's part of the Cultist of Carnage set. Oh, this was supposed to be set, okay, wait, sorry. See, this is why, reading through all the cards is probably, like, I don't want to spoil myself, but I feel like I should have just read through all this before the event. Okay, so wait, we never played with this card. This was never attached to the villain, and I was the one that set it up, so that's all on me. I almost feel like because this is... Okay, I'm of two minds. I understand why putting this into a modular set makes sense, because you are essentially, you want to make it so that other people could have the Carnage symbiote if they wanted to. But kind of the same thing as how we missed the setup star thing. I don't know. With a custom scenario, I almost want to have my hand held a little bit more at setup just so that everything is clear. And I don't know how you communicate that other than to literally have one of these cards that just has a picture of what the board will look like when everything's set up. But in a custom multiplayer scenario, I feel like more hand holding is kind of needed just because you're trying to make sense of everything. But the Carnage symbiote, okay, so I'm reading this for the first time. Forced response. So this was probably just shuffled into the deck and we never actually got around to it. But let's see. After the villain phase begins, do each of the following in order. Discard any minion attached to this card. Discard cards from the encounter deck until you discard a cultist minion. Attach the top cultist minion from the... Yeah, we never touched on this. I don't even have context for how this would affect the game. But okay, either way, so we have we've said that we removed the card and symbiote attachment game. If playing in single table mode, do B. If playing in multiplayer mode, do side A. Put the scenario here to slay, which we'll get to in a second, into play. Find the Along Came the Spider side scheme and reveal it. Find the 7 Web Warrior allies and shuffle them into a Web Warrior deck. So actually, let's just pull these out. So these were the Web Warriors that we will get into them in due time, but they basically became their own deck off to the side. And so yeah, that's all the setup. There's a lot to set up, and like again, this is all on me. I was the one that set it up, so any mistakes that happened, it's just me trying to take everything in. I almost there's almost a part of me that's like, for a custom scenario, I'd almost just like to have the encounter deck just built for me, and you just go from there, and you can separate it. I mean, obviously, collation and everything, trying to get a custom thing printed, but then where everything is just sort of like in its own little thing. Like that's a lot of work, and nobody should be expected to do that, especially these organizers. But then we've got the main scheme, which starts with 1 threat per player, goes up by 2 every turn, and has a total of 7 per player range. Force interrupt when this scheme would be completed. Instead, do the following: remove all threat from here, place 1 per player cultist tokens on here to slay, which is another one of these. We've got the A, we've got the B. So, we've got the A, we got the B. So multiplayer mode or whatever. So yeah, that's just the main scheme. Let's actually start to be a little constructive here. We will, now that we've sort of set up the board, let's just become aware of the divergence between single player and multiplayer mode. And once again, I'll draw myself. Okay, multiplayer is A. Let's look at how the game looked like for us as we went into the scenario. So we've got Carnage here. Well, you know what? If I put this in the right place, you all can read it. Let me just maybe zoom in just a little bit. Okay. So we've got Carnage. He is a 2-scheme, 2-attack symbiote criminal with the force response of after Carnage attacks and defeats an ally, place 1 cultist token on Here to Slay objective. Oh, I see now. Okay, wait. There were a couple cards that they gave us multiple copies of. Which cards were they? And it wasn't... Okay, so obviously... I believe this came up during like preview season for all of this. Kennedy Hawk admitted that was supposed to say the environment, but they probably took this from objectives. Must be a Lord of the Rings thing because it's not an Arkham thing. But either way, so you've got the Here to Slay thing. So whenever Carnage attacks and defeats an ally, a cultist token would go on to here, and then when defeated, remove 3 per player threat from a long camely spider, then heal Carnage to full health instead of defeating him. So a long camely spider is... What is that? Oh, here we go. So that is a side scheme that we will get to in just a moment. Oh my god, I feel like that should just be like, I should print a shirt off that just says we'll get to that in a moment. And then in expert mode, he's 2/3 statted. Oh, I didn't even talk about that. So 9 health per player, 12 health per player. Yeah, so in expert mode, is there anything different? There isn't anything different. It's just more health and more attack, which is fine. So this was the mode that we were fighting right off the bat. This was what we were going up against. You just repeatedly defeat Carnage. You're taking threat off along came a spider and then putting him back to full health. And the way that it sounds, there was one table at my row where they did this like 24 times. For the full experience, I believe, go listen to the Winning Hand podcast that came out this week. I believe one of the people that played that, I think it was Lazy Titan, was at that table. I could be wrong, but based on the context clues, it sounds like he might have been down the tables from me. Either way, so we fight this over and over again, and let's just see here what the single objective one is. So nothing really changes between the multiverse and the table version. The health is the same. The effects are all the same. So that probably means that the other side is what's going to be the bigger issue here. And I'm trying to remember here now. Got the main scheme. And actually, let's even compare. Here to Slay. So, what is the difference? What is the difference between the multiplayer and the single player? I don't even know. So yeah, there's these 2 different versions, and somebody is gonna watch this and go, well, these are the differences between them, the A and the B. Or was this one? This might have been one of the cards that they gave us. There was 2 cards. I think one of them was a symbiote, and then this might have been the other card that they gave us because there was a misprint somewhere. Not sure, and we will just roll with it. This is, oh my god, I'm so sorry. This is so like non-conforming. Okay, so then let's concentrate. Sorry, I'm like I'm everywhere now. So let's just concentrate on the multiverse experience here, because we're going through and I'm trying to remember precisely what it was that flips over Carnage. And I have a feeling that it has to do with Along Came a Spider. And I'm just gonna put outside all the B stuff, because that's I now realize that talking about the single table experience is probably not going to be fruitful. So Along Came a Spider is a side scheme. It's a forced interrupt of when this side scheme would be defeated, place a Web Warrior counter on this side scheme, then place 3 per player threat on this side scheme instead of defeating it. And this was, okay, wait. So what I'm not following is at some point at some point, this here to slay needs to get flipped over too. Okay, so going through, here to slay is an environment. Force response after a cultist counter is placed here. If there's 3 or more cultist counter, 3 or more per player cultist counters here, progress the main. Oh, okay. Okay, so this all makes sense. So I will admit, it took so long for us to flip this over. Like, I feel like we were in the room for like 45 minutes playing over and over again before Kennedy Hawk announced flip over here to slay. And I'm a little confused because I would think that that would mean that this had the double symbol, like 3 per player in the event. And I just don't feel like that was true. I'm trying to think about how it was that we... So when this has 3... Yeah, I guess I'm blanking on how... Like, what pushed this to get flipped over? I mean, obviously it's very obvious. When there's 3 or more cultist counters here, which means that Carnage has killed cultists. So let's see, is that the only way we're getting cultist counters? I believe it is. Along came a spider, then heal Carnage. Yeah, basically kill Carnage over and over again, or clear this off, get a bunch of web warrior counters. At some point, a bunch of allies die. This flips over. So progress to the main scheme 2A, which I will hold up again because it's not focusing. Flip the hero to slay. So this is supposed to say flip the here to slay environment card. Remove all threat from along came a spider side scheme. Flip it to the worldwide web side scheme, leaving the web warrior counters on this new side scheme. Deal each player a face down encounter card. Remove all damage from Carnage and replace it with Carnage 2. So at that point, once we'd worked through cultist counters and everything, and I do agree with one of the people that was on the Critical Encounters episode with me that the here to slay maybe should have just automatically gotten cultist counters through some way, just to have a system that would push it forward, kind of like Doom and Arkham. But then this flips over, and suddenly we are confront the Carnage, which is the main scheme. Force interrupt when this scheme would be completed. Instead, do the following: remove all threat from here. Carnage activates against each player in player order. Place 1 Carnage counter here. Then, if there are 3 or more Carnage counters here, the players lose the game. I don't know that my table ever felt like this was something to worry about. We would just have somebody who was dedicated to keeping the threat off of here, and then everybody else was just attacking Carnage like no one's business. We've got Carnage, who cannot take more than 3 per player damage each turn. And he's got... where did the double come in? Wait, did I pull out the wrong one? Oh, okay. Where's the setup card again? No, main scheme. Okay, wait. Okay, so... A is for multiplayer mode, B is for single table mode. So then, wait, why? Okay, but in the this must be either okay, what? Oh, remove A if, okay, that is, oh, okay. I get what you're going for. That's confusing. We did play this correctly. Remove the A if you're playing multiverse mode. Remove the B if you're playing single mode. Why not just say use A for single, use B for multiplayer? Okay. Okay, well, either way. So sorry, I have been referencing the wrong thing. Okay, so this was the version that we eventually flipped over to. And now, okay, this makes a lot more sense. I now have an understanding of how this works in single table mode, because he just has the health that he does. Okay, so Carnage on the other side, now that we flipped over to confront the Carnage, is now a symbiote deity. He has 2 scheme, 3 attack. Carnage cannot take more than 3 per player damage per round. Carnage will be defeated when he takes 20 per player damage. He's got 20 per player damage at the bottom here. And forced response: after Carnage attacks and defeats an ally, place 2 threat on the main scheme. again, we were never really concerned about that, from what I remember. And force response, after the villain phase begins, move all damage from Carnage to the Great Web table. So we would deal a bunch of damage, Carnage would start his turn, and I would go up to the Great Web table and just be like, we did 26 damage, or we did how much ever damage. I guess it would be 24 damage. We give them a little update. And that's just it. You just sit here and deal a bunch of damage to Carnage for several rounds, and there were, I want to say, there were 40 tables, which means that there was approximately 160 players, which means that Carnage had, let me just do this correctly. There's people who are probably like, this is how much it was. 40 times 4 times 20. So you had 3,200 health estimated. That's a lot of health. And it becomes, I think the issue here is that when you have that many players, like 3 digits worth of players, his health is 4 digits high. It becomes so intangible that my experience was just stay alive, because stuff is happening. There's people who were able to do a whole bunch of damage. Like I said, I think it was the Lazy Titan's table. From the way it sounds, like the people he was playing with just built a deck that was there to make his deck as optimal as possible. It was meant for Boom Guy, and they I don't want to say settled for Lazy Titan, but they gave Lazy Titan the honor of playing the deck. And I think that's the one part about the multiplayer experience that was a little bit of a letdown, was winning was so amorphous that I didn't really know if I was contributing or not. I know my table was, because my table was putting in 20 damage every round, but I don't know. It was whatever it was. So you're just fighting Carnage. You're maybe losing an ally every once in a while. You're moving some threat from you're putting threat onto the main scheme. And on the other side, the Here to Slay has flipped over to gaining momentum, which is an environment. After the villain phase begins, do each of the following in order. Discard any minions attached to this card. So basically the Carnage symbiote thing from the other card. Discard any minion attached to this card. Discard cards from the encounter deck until you discard any cultist minion attached to the cultist minion from the encounter deck from the encounter discard pile to this card. So we will get into the cultists in just a second. They are part of the experience. Although I will say, I guess modular encounter sets do sometimes have things that just sort of like have to go with it. But let me just see here. Are any of the... Yeah. So here's just a little design thing that I'm noticing here. Just now that I have like the time to think about it. Looking, and we will get into it. The 26, there are 26 cards in this Carnage encounter set. None of them have the cultist trait. So the cultists that you're drawing from are strictly from the Cultist of Carnage set, which is, I mean, it's required. It's required as part of. It's required here, but it is just a little weird that the actual like Carnage set does not. It has this card, which maybe that means that this. Well, no, that would be. I don't know. I feel like this card might be in the wrong encounter set. Maybe it needs to be part of the Cultist of Carnage, just because the Cultist of Carnage has the cultists. But that's just me. Either way, I'm very sorry if none of this is like coherent. I'm just trying to show off the cards and really just kind of set the tone for like how the game was progressing and like how you progress through the game, what happens. And yeah, so that is the main schemes, that is the villain, that is the core loop of what you are doing. But let's look at the cards now, because I feel like that's going to be more fun and really just sort of like cause us to have a little bit better talk. So right off the bat, we've got 3 copies of Maniacal Laugh, which the only difference I believe here is that they just have the different resource things. So let's just take this one as the example. So Maniacal Laugh is a treachery. When revealed, pay energy. That could be the other 2 types. Or place one cultist counter on Here to Slay environment card. If you cannot, the villain activates against you instead. That's interesting. I don't know that we ever had a problem because we would just put a cultist counter onto the Here to Slay environment. I'm reminding myself what that is. Okay, so in this case, I guess the problem that I'm also seeing here is that when this goes away, then all you can do is pay energy, or have have Carnage activate against you, which isn't the end of the world. It's just kind of takes away your choices, and I don't know how you fix that, because even trying to do two-sided environments in my own custom content, you just sort of have to make these sacrifices. But that's just something that jumped out at me. So Maniacal Laugh, plus then we've got the boost of place a cultist counter on the Here to Slay environment card. So that could just be a boost icon that does nothing. And yeah, overall, I think this is fine. I don't have any like particular memories of having to run through this card, it being an issue, but you know, it does. I appreciate a card like this because it can mess with your math. You either are going to be losing cards in your hand, which changes the way you can work through your turn, or you've lost a turn, or conceivably. But basically, cultist counters are going on faster than you were expecting, or the villain's activating against you. Okay, and actually, no, I understand the choice now here, because the villain's not going to activate against you unless you can't do one of these two things, obviously. But that really doesn't become a thing until the second half, where you don't have any place to put, there is no Here to Slay to interact with. So then it becomes either pay this cost, or the villain activates against you. And even that, I feel like, because this is part of the Carnage set, I should just say Carnage activates against you. But that's just the semantics, I suppose. Then we've got Double Teaming, which is a treachery. When revealed, choose a minion engaged with you. That minion schemes. If no minion activated this way, place one threat on the main scheme, and this card gains Surge. Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's fine, because you might just not have a minion engaged with you. Okay, the boost ability, place one cultist counter on the Here to Slay environment. Okay, so now that I'm kind of thinking back on what was said during the Critical Encounters interview, it's clear that the designers had ways for cultist counters to be placed on Here to Slay. It's just, it probably wasn't happening frequently enough for it to matter. And I'm beginning to wonder if maybe every card in this encounter set could have had a boost place one cultist counter, so that anytime you hit a boost card for this, you just got a cultist counter. That seems a little heavy-handed, but I wonder if that might have been addressing at least we are too powerful for this scenario, it's not affecting us, that some players were experiencing. That was not my table. My table was getting plenty of cultist counters. We were not working at like S tier performance. Then we've got Coming At Ya. Oops. Another treachery. When revealed, choose a minion engaged with you. That minion attacks you. If no minion engaged you, or no minion activated this way, take one indirect damage, and this card gains Surge. Also interesting. You're taking damage regardless, and you're gonna just surge into something else. Yeah, like I understand where this would be fitting. The art is also really, really cool. Actually, everything we've looked at thus far, like, I'm not feeling this art, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. All the art on here has looked great, especially the art for the con has just gotten better and better. Like, I remember 2 years ago when I went to the one, not to say that there was anything wrong with that art, but just this is a step up. Like, clearly they've gotten more of a budget. They're able to get artists to do more art, and it's awesome. Again, not disparaging of the art from 2 years ago. It's better than I can draw, for sure. And then we've got All Mucked Up, a condition attached to your identity. Forced to interrupt. When you would make a basic activation, place one escape counter here on this card instead. Then if there are 3 or more escape counters on this card, discard it. Alter Ego action, spend a physical resource, place a escape counter on this card. So I like this, one, because you can have someone else go to Alter Ego and basically place the counters on for you. If you are someone like Quicksilver who can ready back up, you can kind of burst through this a little bit faster. But yeah, just in terms of like slowing you down, I think this is an interesting card. This is a card that I kind of like to. Once again, this might be heavy-handed. I'd like to see more copies of this. I would like. 4 might be too much, because then every player at the table could, in some conceivable manner, have a period where everybody has an all mucked up on them. But maybe a third one, just so that you run into the scenario where most of the table, or this is just something that definitely happens every game. That said, just a cool card, and I want to see more of it. Is really the core of all this. Then we've got Suit Malfunction. This is a 1 scheme, 1 attack, 4 health minion, symbiote traded with menace. This player cards attached to this character gain temporary, and when defeated, defeat your bonded symbiote ally, which is something that we will get into in just a second, because that is actually part of the Symbiote Standard set, which is really cool, and actually will be the next thing I want to talk about, because I feel like that will give me a nice break before we get into the other pieces of this encounter set. Yeah, I couldn't remember if this was double-sided. I don't. There's no part of the card that would tell me that it's double-sided, but that's just where my mind went. Oh, I'll also say this was a factor in a lot of the games that we had, and I'm trying to think. It was important because. Oh, it's just the ally. Okay, yeah. It was important because the symbiote ally in itself was something that it comes into play. Each player gets 1 at the beginning of the thing, or at the beginning of the game. So this is just something that can auto defeat one of them, and defeating them flips them over into a minion. So the fact that it is a bonded ally is important. It's not a bonded symbiote in your play area. It is the ally. Okay, but either way, this is a cool card. I think it's got interesting design space. And I kind of I'd like to see something explored like this in the future. And the last thing are 2 side schemes. One of them is Tangled Web. Comes in with 5 threat. Each minion gets +1 attack. When defeated, deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally. Oh, yes. So this is one of those things where I think it was both of these cards where eventually came into... Oh, actually, okay. Then we've got Painted Red, which is a Paint the Town Red, which is another side scheme. Comes in, it's hinder 2, Carnage attacks gains overkill. When defeated, deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally you control. Got the 2 threat, just 2 threat. So these 3 cards were all in play at one point, or were in play at different points in the game, or what have you. And it kept saying, do something to symbiote ally. We didn't investigate. We were just like, well, I guess we'll get symbiote allies at some point. And because you could kind of tell that the scenario worked in 2 phases, maybe we'll get symbiote allies in the second half of the scenario. And these cards are there to deal with that. No, they were setup cards. They were things that we were supposed to have this entire time. So we just kind of assumed when we finally got around to putting them into play, we just went, let's just say they all start with they've been defeated and they're on the other side. And like I said, we'll get into that in just a second. But we just assumed they've all been defeated at least once. Let's just start there, and that's where we'll go from it. But yeah, overall, I like the idea of these 2 cards. Just make the minions stronger, make the attacks from Carnage more difficult, and you're kind of given this choice of what do we do, because we could defeat our symbiote allies trying to deal with these. And that's much more interesting to me than just putting a symbol on here and being like, what are you going to do about the acceleration icon? What are you going to do about the amplify icon? It's like, what are you going to do? Because if you get rid of this, you have made minions less potent, but you may have just created a minion. And that's the threat that you face. So let's get into what I think is a really cool thing to come out of this encounter set, or out of Con of Heroes. And that is Symbiote Standard, which starts, and this is another one. Okay, so we were given 2 copies of this one because apparently there's a misprint on here. I have looked at everything, and I'm just not sure what's different. So I think this is the reprint one because it's kind of bent because it sat in the bottom of my bag by accident. But I have looked at these. I don't know. Oh, okay. This says super stats. Okay, so that's sure. Okay, so this is supposed to be extra hand. So that's the difference. Really? That's it? Okay. Well, either way, I know that now. It's in the subtitle. So how this scenario was supposed to work was that you start with one of these 4 symbiotes, and we'll go through them one at a time real quick. They're all 0 cost allies. Okay. So this one has the same subtitle. Okay, I see why that is definitely a problem now. Okay, so Symbiote Suit super stats is a 2 thwart, 1 attack, 4 health, symbiote ally with setup star and bonded. If this card would be defeated or removed from play, remove all tokens from it and flip it over instead. Hero response: after this ally activates and choose a basic power, your identity gets +1 to that basic power until the end of the round. So yeah, just nothing. This is probably the most like generic of all of them. Like it's just inherently good, whereas the other ones are going to be doing a lot more for us, and you almost want to tech your deck around what they're doing. I don't remember which one. I might have taken this one we're about to get into. I don't remember. Probably because we were supposed to have them and we didn't have them right away. And then let me just spoil myself here real quick. Are they all okay? So they're not all the same. So when this flips over, and I think this is also really cool. So the bonded keyword flips it over, and it becomes an unleashed symbiote with 2 scheme, 2 attack, 6 health, elite symbiote, bonded and menace. So everything on it's temporary. The engaged player's identity gets -1 attack, -1 thwart, -1 defense. So kind of just doing the opposite of what it was doing before. And after Unleashed Symbiote engages with you during the player phase, this minion attacks you even in alter ego form. Very potent. And just dangerous in general. But at the same time, I think that we were able to obviously we started with them all flipped over just because we were like, I think we messed this up and let's just do this to kind of like level it out. I don't remember my symbiote flipping over. Like once I got it back to the ally side, I don't remember it flipping back over. So this was like, whichever one I had wasn't a big threat to me. And I do think that it was the next one, but I'm not sure. Then we got Symbiote Suit Extra Hand, which is 1 thwart, 1 attack, 4 health symbiote, set up bonded. You can control 1 extra restricted keyword. Oh, this one couldn't have been mine because we had a rocket player at our table. He must have had this one. Hero response: after this ally activates, deal damage equal to the number of upgrades you control. Now I'm thinking this was because I was playing Scarlet Witch and I think I just had a lot of upgrades in front of me, and I can remember dealing like 2 or 3 damage every time it activated. So I think this was the one I had. I'm sorry. I didn't write anything down because I both didn't want to be rude and like feel like I was looking away from everybody and pulling out my phone to write things down. And then also like there was so much going on that I was just overstimulated. Then this flips over into another Unleashed Symbiote, 2 scheme, 2 attack, 5 health, and the bonded mana stuff that from before. And first response: after Unleashed Symbiote engages you, deal yourself a face down encounter card. So this might be why I don't have a memory of it flipping over too much, because it was just giving me face down encounter cards, which obviously is a threat, but is not something that immediately makes your life harder. You're not gonna. It's kind of like playing Starlight. You're not gonna remember why you have all these encounter cards in front of you. You won't remember like you did this or where did this specific card come from. It's just sort of like, and my encounter card phase is just going to be difficult. Then we've got Symbiote Suit Meat Shield, 1 scheme, 1 attack, 6 health, symbiote traded, blah blah blah. When your hero would take any amount of damage, reduce that damage by 1 and deal 1 damage to this ally. That's interesting. So you can keep yourself safe, and this will just sort of like soak 6 damage for you. That's kind of cool. And actually, if I was playing with Spider-Ham, I would want this card because you're reducing the amount of damage, but you're still working towards what you're trying to work towards. Then on the Unleashed Symbiote side, Bonded Toughness, okay, and Menace. Reduce the amount of damage this minion takes from each attack by 1, and then when it engages you during the minion attacks you in alter ego form. Yeah, this one actually, something about it makes me want to bump its hit points down by 1 or 2, just because it's already got so much going for it. But still at the same time, breaking the tough and then dealing 6 damage in one attack doesn't seem too difficult. So this is just a minion that I feel like you're going to be... This minion I'd probably want to just be flipping constantly, though. And then last one is Symbiote Suit. Symbiote Suit, good boy. 1 scheme, 2 attack, symbiote traded, blah, blah, blah. Hero response after this ally, or 3 health after this ally. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health, symbiote, blah, blah, blah. Hero response after this ally activates, return the top card of your discard pile to your hand. That's kind of nice. So it just goes and like fetches you back something from your discard pile. And then it flips over to an XX5 Symbiote Menace. X is equal to the number of upgrades you control, max is 3. That's dangerous. And a force responsive after Unleashed Symbiote engages with you during this player phase. He attacks you, even in alter ego form. So yeah, just overall, I think that just starting out, these are really cool. They give you a benefit, but then they constantly are a menace to you. And I think that is really cool. And this is part of the standard that people over at MCM created. And that's pretty cool. All right, and then getting into the actual Symbiote Standard, we've got 2 copies of Tangled, which is a treachery. Deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally you control. Confuse each ally defeated this way. Oh, damn! Sorry. Confuse all the allies you defeated. Oh, sorry. Confuse each ally damage this way. The villain schemes. This is very heavy-handed. Wow. Then a boost of deal 1 damage to each ally. So yeah, this was another example of, oh my gosh, what's going on here? The symbiotes keep taking damage, but we don't have any symbiotes. Just a cool card. I'm trying to think. This is the advance kind of variant. I like the idea of confusing the allies as well, just to sort of make using them as a utility even harder. Then we've got Symbiote Strike, which I'm guessing is going to be the Caught Off Guard. Let's see, it is a treachery. When revealed, alter ego, deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally you control. Stun each allied damage this way. This card gains Surge. Deal 1 damage to each, and then in hero form, deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally you control. Stun each allied damage this way. The villain attacks you. So this is the, oh gosh, what is it? Gang Up. And then boost ability, deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally you control. So yeah, you are working towards just defeating symbiote allies constantly in this. Then we've got Feed the Beast, which is a treachery. Deal 3 damage to each symbiote ally you control. I think this is what really pushed us over to, we need to just have them be defeated and we'll go from there. Then otherwise, if you don't have a symbiote ally, discard an upgrade or support you control, then give each symbiote minion engaged with you a tough status card. Woof. This is... Okay, so it's not after you deal 3 damage if you don't have a symbiote ally. So if you just didn't have a symbiote ally to begin with, you're doing the Caught Off Guard thing. That's just mean. Again, both of these arts really stand out. They're both really cool. Then we've got Stretched Thin, a treachery. When revealed, deal 3 damage to each symbiote ally control. This card gains Surge. In alter ego form, deal 1 damage to each symbiote ally control. The villain and each symbiote minion engaged with you attacks. So this is the Gang Up. Woof. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is interesting just because you get all of these symbiotes and then just things just go awry. You're constantly working to flip the minions back over, but then the Symbiote Standard is just working to flip them back to minions, and I think it makes for an interesting dynamic. I would be interested to see how this plays where you just put this Symbiote Standard into its own separate thing to just let it be the Rhino with symbiotes. Then we've got Symbiote Suit. And this one I remember very much. It is an attachment, it has the costume trait. When revealed, find your Nemesis minion and reveal it. Shuffle the rest of your set-aside Nemesis set into the encounter deck. Attach this to your Nemesis minion. Attached minion gets +1 to each basic power, +5 health, and gains a a hazard icon. So notably, this is the Shadow of the Past, but it's not pulling in the side scheme, which I think is interesting, but I think is probably balanced out because, oh my, if you had to deal with a powered up Nemesis minion plus the side scheme, I know that kind of goes outside. That's what you're supposed to be doing, but I think that would be difficult in many ways. But I like this idea of having a super powered Nemesis minion. And last card is just a reprint of Suit Malfunction. The Menace, 1/1, 4 stats, and when defeated, defeat your bonded symbiote ally, which we were, now that you have context for the symbiote allies, we were just working so that basically you'd get your symbiote ally down to 1 health, and then you would Suit Malfunction, defeat it, flip it over, and you would just be like ready to like try to combat your symbiote to try to get it back over as quickly as possible. There is a way to metagame this. I do appreciate this being in the set, just because you got it in Carnage, but this is a way so that it's always there in Standard. Maybe all of them should have been in here, and we could have had more of the cards that I liked from the Carnage scenario also be in the scenario, and then just make Symbiote Standard even bigger. That might have been a little much though. But that is that's Symbiote Standard. So we have successfully made our way through 2 of the sets, and there is still, well, actually at this point we are actually more than halfway through everything, which I'm very happy about. So let's get into one of the other, oh wait, actually, we never talked about these. We never talked about the Web Warriors. We'll talk about the Web Warriors. Let's talk about them now. These are the Web Warriors that would basically come into play, and I don't have a lot of experience with them because what happened during the multiplayer scenario is that all the Web Warrior counters were counted up. I'm trying to think about where that would have been. They go on to Along Came a Spider, and what is it when it flips over? Okay, and you know what? This is on me. I didn't think about this, but when this flips over to the World Wide Web, when this side scheme would be defeated, remove a Web Warrior counter from this side scheme. Choose a player. That player draws 2 cards from the Web Warrior deck and plays one of them for free. Then place 1 threat on this side scheme instead of defeating it. So this just became a thwart for 1, get a Web Warrior. The only thing is that in the, oh, I'm sorry, wait, this is, okay. Yeah, this is on me because this was from that confusion. All right, so this is the multiplayer version. So, and actually, sorry, I'm gonna hit the thing. Play one more counter here. Okay, so this flips over. When the side scheme would be defeated, remove a Web Warrior counter from the Great Web table. So all of our Web Warrior counters were then moved to the table, and we were, as a room, that was our pot. I think we only pulled 1 or 2 or 2 or 3 of these because we just didn't have any context for what the pool of Web Warrior counters looked like. And I think that just resulted in us not interacting with this much. But I will just sort of go through these really quick. So we've got Spider-Man Noir, 2 scheme, 1 attack, 3 health. He gets +2 attack and +2 thwart when the top card of the encounter deck is a discard pile is a treachery. Cool. When defeated, look at the top 3 cards in the encounter deck, discard 1, and shuffle the others back into the encounter deck. Have another player in the Spider-Verse repeat this effect, shuffle this card into the Web Warrior deck. So when he's defeated, you get to set up the top card of the encounter deck, or you get to mess with the encounter deck, and then somebody within the multiverse, which is just any table in play. So that could be our table if you're playing single table, could be one of the other 3 tables if you're playing 4 tables. It was one of the other 39 tables when we were playing 40. SPDR, and notably none of these have unique symbols, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, 2/2 stats, Web Warrior. SPDR is a treachery card while in the encounter deck. Interesting. I do not know what this card does. When defeated, shuffle this card into the encounter deck. When revealed, stun and confuse the villain Repeat this effect at another table. Shuffle this card into the Web Warrior deck. That's really cool. My only concern is just that, having seen what the actual cards that are player cards that get shuffled into the encounter deck, I'm a little concerned that this is not going to do anything unless it had a boost effect that basically dealt it to you as an encounter card so that it could be revealed. Either way, that's nitpicking. I think this is a really cool design and just plays into the Web Warriors want to be defeated thing really in an interesting way. Then we've got Hobie Brown Spider-Man, 1/1, 3 stats, Web Warrior. Interrupt. When a boost card is turned face up, defeat. When a boost card is turned face up, defeat Spider-Man. Cancel all boost icons on that card, and discard it. When defeated, deal damage to the villain equal to the number of boost icons on the top card of the encounter deck discard pile. Repeat this at another table in the multiverse. Shuffle it into the Web Warrior deck. So this plays a lot like how the actual card does that we have in the game, but just in a more Web Warrior way. I think this is really cool, and this was the one that I did use. I don't know that he ever died, because I never got pushed to the point where I was like, oh, I want to cancel these boost icons. Now, I think there's probably a part of this that just goes, you want to just have Web Warriors be defeated as much as possible, but again, because the pool of Web Warrior counters was so opaque to us, we didn't know how many chances we were going to have at getting Web Warriors, and then the game was just kind of over, and that's just what it was. Then we've got Spider-Ham, 2/2/2, 6 stats, Web Warrior, hero response, deal 1 damage to Spider-Ham, generate a wild resource, limit once per phase, and when defeated, shuffle this card into the Web Warrior deck. Give someone in the Spider-Verse a high five, even yourself. Then that player searches their deck for a resource card and adds it to their hand. This is just cool. I know he died. He was in front of me. I let him be defeated to go get a resource card. And yeah, just overall, cool design. Then we've got Spider-Man Miles Morales. Spider-Man takes no consequential damage after attacking an enemy with a status counter. That's cool. He's got 3 attacks, so that's definitely, you're going to be able to utilize that. And when defeated, stun a minion, shuffle this card into the Web Warrior deck, then choose another player in the Spider-Verse to stun a minion engaged with them. So this can actually do a lot of double duty. Then we've got Ghost Spider, who, what is going on in this art? Oh, I see. Okay, her face is right there. That's some trippy art. Okay. 1/1, 4 stats, Web Warrior response. After you resolve an interrupt or response ability on an event, ready Ghost Spider. When defeated, ready your identity, shuffle this into the encounter deck, choose another player to ready their identity. Now reading all these in context, I think these are really cool in a multiplayer setting, and they're the kind of thing that I almost wish could be used outside of the Carnage scenario. But I think that they'd be too busted there. And last card is Peter Parker, 2/2/2 stats, 3 health, Web Warrior. He gets each trait on your identity card. When defeated, draw a card. Then choose another player let's shuffle into the Web Warrior deck. Then choose another player in the Spider-Verse to draw a card. So yeah, overall, these are all really cool. And I think that in a scenario where you're playing with, like I said, the magic number that I've thrown out before is like 3 to 5 tables. When all that is a little bit more physical, you can understand the shape of the game. I feel like these will be a lot better. I feel like being able to sort of like just walk around and give people high fives and everything, will probably play really well. When you have no idea how many Web Warrior tokens are still in play, how rapidly you're running through them, it just becomes a thing where I think one table even said we were just taking Web Warriors and not reporting that we were taking them because it didn't feel like it was a big deal. All right, so final stretch here. Okay, so we're going to talk about the remainder of the Carnage stuff, plus the 3 cards that were part of the Con of Heroes campaign, and maybe we'll just leave it at that, because this is already becoming a very long video, although I'd like to think that I've gotten into a lot more structure now that we're just going card by card. So the Cultist of Carnage set has just a bunch of cultists. And I appreciate that they reused the art, but that's fine. That's not a big deal to me. Plus, that's where the Carnage symbiote thing comes from. And okay, so part of why minions being attached to the villain matters is because they have this keyword called worship that we'll get into on each one of them. But essentially, the Carnage symbiote and where's the other card? Is it this one? Yeah, and gaining momentum both care about cultists. They both are going to trigger the worship ability. And now that I know that this was a card that was supposed to be in play, I'm really sad that we just did not have this part of the game. I think this scenario still worked even without this, so I'm not going to sweat it too much. We've got Hazardous Cultist. 1 scheme, 1 attack, 3 health, Cultist Symbiote, Menace. It's got a hazard icon and worship, which, again, like, is there some place to spell out what worship even does? I think you can intuit it. Yeah, I mean, you can intuit it based on the card, but like, there's actually nothing that tells you what context worship works in. But either way, so worship, as long as this card is attached to an environment or attachment card, the villain gains a hazard icon. So that's pretty cool. It's just passing on its icon, and for the most part, because we sort of came to this late, there's not a lot of memory to how these worship abilities work, but I think that the idea is sound, saying that we're going to have these class of cards that get attached to other cards and grant them abilities. I think it's something that I would definitely consider for other custom content, exploring that space of these cards get attached. Like, yeah, actually, yeah, I think if I had been designing one of my pieces of custom content now instead of 2 years ago or whatever, I would have probably explored this space, this exact space, because it would have been just when this is defeated, attach it to the villain and it does something. And we've got Lurking Cultist, just a 2/1/3 static cultist with menace, worship. As long as this card is attached to an environment or attachment card, the villain gets +1 fort, and then it's got a boost ability of place 2 threat on the main scheme. And yeah, I think just in terms of as a function, as a game piece, I mean, we've got 5 cultists. So when you're doing the symbiote suitability, you're discarding the minion that's on here, and then you're just running through the encounter deck to go find another one. You could be displacing a lot of cards because there's only 5 that you're hitting, and I think that is something important to keep in mind. We've got Regenerating Cultist, 2/2/3 stats, menace, and toughness. Worship, as long as this card is attached to an environment or attachment card, the villain gains the force responsive after the villain activates, heal 2 damage, and then it's got a boost ability of heal 2 damage from the villain. Yeah, I would absolutely consider just putting this. Actually, I would consider putting this encounter set into something like Rhino just to see how it goes, because giving Rhino a Carnage symbiote essentially with these range of abilities I think is really cool, to the point where I actually think that having this be something that happens in the back half of the thing is almost unneeded, because as long as you have the Carnage symbiote and you have clearly done the setup to have it, I think that you're doing enough that this isn't something that I need. This could have been something else, another component of the scenario, and just let this be an evergreen effect that's always there. We've got Powerful Cultist, 1/1/2. I think if it's a powerful cultist, maybe it should be 1/1/3. 3 health, menace, worship. As long as this card is attached to an environment or attachment card, the villain gets +1 attack. It's got a lot of boost icons. It's scary. Yeah, I think I would have just given it more attack than the rest of the ones. But either way, that's just based on words. And then Stinging Cultist, Retaliate 1. Okay, 1/1/3 menace, Retaliate 1, worship. As long as they messed up Retaliate there. But as long as this is attached to an environment or an attachment card, the villain gains Retaliate 1. that is also spicy. But yeah, overall, I think that this is a really cool encounter set. And I would absolutely consider just throwing it into a regular scenario and just seeing how it goes. Because like thinking about Rhino is always the one I think of because it's just the most like vanilla. But throw it into Unis, throw it into what's another good example? Throw it into the what's his name? The first part of Galaxy of the Most Wanted, or your God, put this onto Gamora and just see, or onto not Gamora, put it on to what's her name, Nebula. Put it on a Nebula, just see how it goes. The symbiote went to space. Okay, then the last cards from the Carnage scenario are the Children of Carnage, which is going to be Toxin, a minion with 1 scheme, 1 attack, 7 health, Offspring Symbiote. It's got Villainous and Menace. Dear Lord. When revealed, search the top 10 cards of the encounter deck for a minion and put them into play, engage with you. Attach Toxin to that minion. Attached minion gains Villainous and Menace. So what I like about this, and then the boost ability is shuffle it back into the encounter deck. But what I like about this is that all of these search the top 10. And I don't know how the rules for like failing to find in Marvel Champions necessarily works, but you have the option to basically find a minion and turn them into a villainous minion in the context of Toxin and not have to worry about this 7 health minion. And I think the only tweak that I might have made was maybe applying all of or a percentage of their health to the minion they're attached to. But other than that, I think just giving your attributes to this card, to the minion, is interesting. Then we've got Scorn, 3 scheme, 1 attack, 1 health. Then we've got Scorn, a 3 scheme, 1 attack, 7 health minion, Offspring Symbiote again. Menace. Search the top 10 cards in the encounter deck for minion, put it into play, engage with you, attach Scorn to that minion. That minion gains Menace and +2 scheme. And again, the boost ability of shuffle it back into the encounter deck. Basically the same thing. I think this is very creative, and I think it's interesting that this just is doing what it's doing. And I think that giving Menace so that everything's temporary and boosting up the scheming is deadly. And Raise, which is a 3/1 6 health Offspring Symbiote with Menace. Again, search the top 10, attach this to it. Attach minion, gains Menace and +2 attack. I would have flipped the stats, and they probably did intend to flip the stats. This should have been a 1/3 for what he's doing. But either way, I see what they're trying to get at, and I think that's pretty cool. And once again, shuffle it back into the counter deck as a boost ability. So that is all the cards that were in the Carnage scenario. And I think that this just overall, so much cool artwork, so much stuff going on here. Don't want to take away from any of that. I think this was so cool, and the design of it was so interesting that I think that they were onto something here, and I think that's really cool. Let's talk about the campaign cards really quick. Additionally, I'm going to save this maybe for just another like quick video. We have other cards that are not this. I'm starting to like lose it here. So let's just talk about the campaign cards, because this was part of the Saturday where you could play through a 4-part campaign or up to 4-part campaign, and the villain got each one of these attachments in whatever order you wanted, and then if you won, they flip over to something else. But let's start with just the Scorn Symbiote suit, which is a setup attached to the villain. And this was what we played it with against in the second game against Drang. It did not go well, but you just give a hazard and an acceleration or an amplify icon to the villain, and it's far more deadly than it looks. And if you flip it over, it becomes, I don't actually know what's on the other side of these because I never saw them. Okay, so setup, put this card into play between all players. So if you won, you got to have the Scorn Symbiote suit at your beck and call. So here interrupt. When the attached hero's controller, missing an L there, reveals an encounter card, exhausts this card. Cancel the effects of that card and discard it, then reveal another card from the encounter deck. Any player may spend an energy resource to attach this card to their identity and ready it. Hero action, spend a energy resource to attach this card to your identity. Any player may use this ability. So what I like about this is it just sits in play, and you can just use up a resource to attach it to you so that you have this, and then once you use it up, you can pass it to another player. I would say you probably just want to put this on the first player, and then just always be ready, always be on the lookout for a time to use this. Obviously you'll hit some encounter cards that just are not worth canceling out, because there's nothing that's going to be worse than them. But cool card. Then we've got the Raise Symbiote. Again, set up attached to the villain, interrupt. When you reveal a treachery card, that card gains Insight 1. So you're just boosting up the scheming or the threat. Flip it over. Again, it just sits between everybody. This time you're using a mental resource to attach it to yourself. And then hero response: after the attached hero's controller plays an event, exhaust this card to draw a card. That's cool. Yeah, that I would want to see this in a multiplayer setting, just understanding how it works. But this is another thing where I wouldn't be opposed to basically playing a campaign where you could get these. And then we've got the Toxin Symbiote. Again, attached to the villain. Attached villain. When attached villain initiates an attack against you, take 2 indirect damage. Exhaust each ally damage this way. This was our first Drang game, and then that 2 indirect damage every time just sucks. It takes your health pool and just dwindles it down super quick. Flip side is physical resource to move it around. And when an attached hero would attack, exhaust this card, increase the damage of that attack by 2. Yeah, I would want to. So the threat of what this does on its one side, I think, really pays off when you flip it over. Being able to just basically add 2 damage to an attack is cool. So yeah, I would say just if you can do a print and play or something of this, these are cards that I would definitely consider just throwing into a little mini campaign, because these are pretty cool. And I lied again. We're just going to talk about every card right now. I've already got you. Why would I make another video to come out later? I'm clearly not a good enough content creator. So let's just talk about these challenge cards, because these are pretty quick. They are 4 cards that you could basically attach to the applicable scenario. So in this one's for Sandman, and you had the modular encounter set of Power Drain, which I believe was from the Risky Business of the Green Goblin scenario pack. So conditions: each time you would resolve the Surging Sands ability on the city streets, take 1 indirect damage. Ay Dios mío. Okay, that's rough. Then we've got Business Savvy, which goes on to the Risky Business scenario. You add in the Guerrilla Tactics modular set. And conditions are the Criminal Enterprise environment gains an acceleration and hazard icon. The State of Madness environment gains a hazard and amplify icon. Woo! Okay. So you can't thwart the main scheme while you are dealing with Criminal Enterprise. And this is one that I would definitely consider. I would say play Risky Business and just see how it goes. This is pretty cool. And I'll say that the content I've done where Risky Business was part of a video I did was pretty quick, because those scenarios aren't that difficult, and I think this just adds a difficulty that that's just mean. Okay, Mr. IOU, which is part of that you add to the Mysterio, and Modular Shedden's Wrecking Crew. Okay, I don't know how applicable that is, but let's see. Conditions: after each player mulligans, they shuffle their Nemesis set into their deck. Oh, so, oh wow, that's mean. Okay, so because Mysterio, I'd have to look at the Mysterio set again. Because he's putting encounter cards into your deck, there must be some kind of, like, when you hit an encounter card, you automatically reveal it. and your Nemesis set goes into your deck after mulligans. That's cruel. And then the Sixers, which you add to the Sinister Six, and you add in Weapon Master. Condition: after the villain attacks you, always resolve their forced response, even if you take no damage. Well, that's just cruel. Wow. I think just in terms of like challenges, these are the kind of things that I would definitely, spice up some of these. I think Business Savvy is the one that's the most needed, because I think that Risky Business already is a little kind of, could be better and more difficult. Like, I'm not somebody that's worried too much about difficulty, but I think that just adding even one of these symbols to the environment would have been a nice starting place. Oh my gosh, boy. All right, and then let's talk about the jetpack scenario real quick. So we can bust this out really quick. Right off the bat, each player gets a jetpack. It is a bonded card, which means that it flips over. Yeah, so it flips over when it would be removed from the game. It has 3 uses on it. And hero action of exhaust this card and remove 1 fuel counter from it. So one of the uses. Your identity gains the aerial trait until the end of the round. If you already have the aerial trait, choose a basic power instead. Your identity gets +1 to that basic power until the end of the round. And when you use up all the uses, it flips over to grounded, a setup bonded card. After the hero phase begins, your identity loses the aerial trait as a forced response, and hero action of spend a physical or mental resource to flip this card over. We had this in a scenario that I played with the guys from Critical Encounters. I did not really interact with this. There are cards, yeah, and they all do the same thing. Okay, yeah. So there are cards that will be dealing with these jetpacks a little bit, but like I never gained aerial. I'm trying to think about even who I was. I was playing Deadpool, so I was playing my my Bosom Buddies deck where I sidekick Cable, and I just had no use for this, but it was fun to watch. We had a Miss Marvel deck that was built to gain aerial, and when Miss Marvel is doing honed technique shenanigans, it gets pretty deadly pretty fast. But then we've got a setup minion of Graviton, 2 scheme, 2 attack, 7 health, elite aim scientist traded, and Graviton is always engaged with the first player. Forced interrupt: when Graviton activates, remove 1 field counter from each shield jetpack. Each player who cannot takes indirect damage. When defeated, shuffle this minion into the encounter deck. So during the game that we played with the jetpacks, we forgot to put Graviton into play. So that probably also changes how you interact with your jetpack, because unless you can get him off the table, you're just going to be losing uses constantly. I feel like that's a little heavy-handed. I think just having your jetpacks with 3 uses and then you get grounded, I think that's probably enough. You don't need a minion messing with your fuel, but what have you. This is still an interesting thing. Then I don't believe there's anything different here. So we've got 3 copies of AIM Jetpack Trooper, 1 scheme, 2 attack, 4 health AIM Scientist traded card with 1 revealed. If you are aerial, Graviton attacks you. If not, Graviton schemes. If Graviton is not in play, find and reveal him. Oh god. When defeated, if you are not an aerial, shuffle this minion into the encounter deck. Wow, okay. Didn't have to interact with these, but that is a card. You have to be aerial to be able to really take this. If you are aerial, Graviton attacks you. If you're not aerial, when you defeat him, you just get shuffled back into the deck. Yeah, interesting card. Did not interact with it, but I can see a lot of uses here. I will say this custom content makes me want to play with it, whereas the stuff from a couple years ago, which I think I even have right here. Yeah, I mean I've got it all right here. The other one, it's literally just been sitting in this spot in my core set box, just in a little pocket for the last 2 years. Did not go last year, unfortunately. And then we've got Toss 'em Left, which is a treachery. When revealed, remove 1 fuel counter from your shield jetpack. If you are aerial, ready your identity. You are confused. If you are not aerial, take 2 indirect damage and a boost of remove 1 fuel counter from your jetpack and take 1 indirect damage. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I see. I think the jetpacks need more counters on them to kind of counteract what's going on here. I realize you can flip it back over, but this actually feels a little heavy-handed. You're dealing so much with the jetpack fuel. I realize this is only like 8 cards in an encounter set, but yeah, this feels like we give you this tool and then we just have a lot of stuff that just interacts with that in a really aggressive way. And the last cards we'll be talking about today are Toss 'em Right. When revealed, remove 1 fuel counter from your jetpack. If you are aerial, exhaust your identity, you are stunned. If you are not aerial, take 2 indirect damage. Remove boost ability of remove 1 fuel counter from the jetpack and take 1 indirect damage. Oh, and I like this. This is mirrored, so this is out of control. This is out of control, but backwards. Okay. Yeah, overall, the jetpack thing, I think I'd want more experience with to really kind of speak on it. I would kind of like just feel, I'd like to just like have the fun of playing with the jetpack and not having to worry about the jetpack losing fuel. But either way, any criticism I have or any misgivings, and there's not even really misgivings, it's just some of it was my own failure to read, but basically anything I can say about, I mean, look at this. Look at all of it. This was, everybody got this giant stack of cards. Just look at all of this. This is just intense. The art was awesome. The design was awesome. It's not all of it was really like the vibe that I like, but regardless, I think that if there is any selling point I can give for Go to Con of Heroes 2026, it's that whatever they do next year will probably be far better than this. Like any misgivings I have, any typos, that's just part of designing custom content. That's going to happen. But this is so cool, and go out and try to get into the con next year. My understanding is that the location is going to change, so the capacity is going to be better, and hopefully that just means that as the con grows, the space we go to grows, and everybody who wants to get a ticket can go next year, because I think this is pretty cool. But I will not spend any more of my time with you. I will move on, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for your time, and remember, you are awesome. You're doing great. Keep it up.